This is Brian Young from a company called Mr. Puzzle in Australia. We're going to do a solve on the SMS box. So it's a spoiler, so if you don't want to watch it, turn off now. The reason for this is that most of these are tied up in collections around the world, and the chances of you coming across one are very, very slim, even at the specialist auctions. So first up, I'll explain the actual puzzle itself. And what we have looks like an old-fashioned telephone. You have a cord that comes out with a magnet here, handset that is held on with a very, very strong magnet. You have a dial that can rotate in both directions, and you have it tilts as well at the 5 and 6 like so. It doesn't tilt anywhere else but just at 5 and 6. It has a little what we call an Easter egg as well. It actually, if you look closely at the SMS section and the dial at the same time, you'll see it gives a bit of an optical illusion happening. That was actually unintended. We actually noticed it only after we manufactured it. Now, as well, we have two buttons at the top, and one of them goes up and down no problem. The other one looks like it's jammed down. So just to explain a little bit more about it, I'll show you some of the working drawings, or one of the working drawings that we used when manufacturing it. You'll see our dial on the top held in with its very strong magnets, our spring-loaded handset button there, and that button really does nothing. It's just you have to have two handset buttons, and we put one there that just went up and down. It was a bit of a misdirection. The cord comes down here and it's held on with a little small magnet here, so that's what we've removed already. Now we have the other button that looks like it's broken. It's sitting in here and it's held with this rod, and it's spring loaded. It's pushing up against this magnet, which has got a south pole here and a north pole on this side. It's held pushed in there by this other magnet, which is a north-south pole. Now that the two south poles are opposing each other, so it's pushing this into here. Now what we need to do is get that to come out, and to do that you have another very strong magnet in the back of the white the actual dial, and if you rotate that around, and as it comes around to about here, it actually picks up this magnet and pushes it against this magnet. Now the one that's in the dial is actually much stronger, so it just releases this and then it comes out. Now as well, in behind on the white dial is this groove, which is very important, and we'll use that to get a ball bearing into this lock, which is actually in the lock in the drawing. There is 3 traps, these two here in the pink, and then we have this one here as well. Now the ball bearing can travel around in these traps, but they can't get from one trap to another unless you actually pick it up and move it. Now that's pretty much what's in behind the dial. So now we'll just go ahead with a bit of the solve, and first up we will get the button out. And like I said before, we have to bring this dial around. You push down on the button, release the pressure off that magnet, and you'll feel the actual magnetic fields happening on each other there. And if you come around here and release that button when you can feel that you've released that magnet there, back that way, and it'll come up. So now you can take that out. That's your first tool. You're going to use that in a minute, but firstly we will actually try and find what's in behind here. Now like I said before, there's actually a pin between 5 and 6, and that pin will actually tell you things that are going on in there. Now that pin will tell you that there's an obstruction here. If you lift it and drop it down again, whoops, we went too far. There's an obstruction, and then you lift it, you drop it into the lock, which is a piece of pipe, and you can backwards and forwards. The pin's in the pipe, you lift it again, and you come back and you hit the obstruction again. So that's the lock that we're talking about, that's going to release the draw. As well as that, there's a ball bearing floating around in here, and we need to find that, and that's it there. It's come around and stopped there. You know that because if you lift it and drop it, it goes back. It's not a permanent obstruction there. It's actually the ball bearing getting caught in the traps, and it can't come right around. So now what we need to do is we need to push that ball bearing right round to here, continue around, and we need to pick up the groove. Now I need to put the ball bearing in the groove. To do that, we will definitely need to turn it upside down. And if you heard a rattle then, and that's it actually falling into the groove. And we can hold it into the groove now by using the dial button, the handset button. Now that's it there, and we know that that's actually attached because it's actually attached to the ball bearing, because that, whoops, it just fell off. It's not supposed to fall off. Right, it's there. Okay, so it just slid across in the groove. Now if we push that right back over here, now we've got the ball bearing right up hard against here. We know the lock is over here because we found it before. Now we need to find exactly where the lock is and mark it. So I do this normally. We need to be, this pin has to be right in the center of that lock. So we look at how much it goes past, and then that would be in the center there. You can bring this around now, and you line up the center of the dial, this and this pin, and if you do that and release the ball bearing, it'll drop down into the brass lock. Now once you move that, the ball will stay in the brass lock. And if you bring the 5 and the 6 around again and you drop it down this time in the brass lock, what should happen is the drawer will open. Whoops, we'll just get that back in the camera shot, and you see it only opens up that far. And the reason for that is we have a second lock there, but it's only actually a fraction after. Right, now after you open it, comes into action now. What we need to do is close it again, and actually what we need to do is undo the second lock. To do that, there's a weighted weight on a thread, meaning it's like a coin, and you've got a hole drilled in one side with a thread in it, and we've got a thread coming from the top and the bottom of the box, and it's swiveling around on that with the weight of the actual so we put that upside down and we wind that weight right to the bottom, and it'll make a slight different change in sound when it gets there. It's right at the bottom. Now if we go back to our lock up the top, and this time release the lock, now you'll find the drawer comes right open. Okay, so now we've got our drawer out, and I'll get a torch and show you the weighted. I think you should be able to see it there. It's actually on the left hand side at the bottom there. That's the weight, so that's set now to open down the bottom. Now just swirling the puzzle will actually make that weight go back up to the other end if you have it the right way. So now we have the box out, the drawer out. Now we have to go fishing. This little piece comes in handy now again, and if you drop it in this hole, you will find there's another hole here, a bigger hole. There's a slightly squarer hole here, and what we need to do is need to get something out of there, because you can actually hear it rattling around in there if you shake it. So now I'll bring it up so you can see what I'm doing. Just jiggle it around a little bit. Let's see if I can. It's a bit difficult with the camera in the way. I can't see what I'm doing. Let's try again. There we are. That's better. Now I need to bring it up into that situation. You see there's something just in there. To get it out, you have to tip it upside down, release it, and it falls out. We have a little magnet in here which actually attaches to there. So that's how you get it out. Once you've got this out, you need now find some place to put it, and it actually goes back in this hole over here, because it won't fit in the top hole and you don't want to put it back where you just got it from, and there's nothing else really to put it into. So you put it into here, but it actually does nothing until you do something else first, and what that is a really, really strong magnet holding the handset on. You can actually use it here. That released this brass pin, so it can come out. It just slides back in and out all the time. So what you need to do is to keep it out, you need to use the SIM card and rotate it. So that stops it from going back in now, as long as you hold it in the right spot. Now, first up, before we do anything else, we need to move the weight in the opposite direction, because we're going to put the drawer in back to front to release another lock down the bottom. Okay, we've moved the weight down the bottom. We come back here and we insert this upside down to the way it came out. Push down, that's the locking pin that holds the drawer in normally. And if you push it right up to there, and now what we do is we push on it, and what we've done is we've released inside. You may not have seen it before because it's pretty well hidden with the grain, and I'll just move this. What we did was released a bit of the floor inside the box, and what was hidden in there was this, and it's held in place by this brass piece, and when we pushed at the back of the box it released a spring-loaded mechanism, and then that drops out. So now we have an actual phone, and we can get our SIM card out, and the SIM card can go in there, and hopefully, well, it would be a bit tough with a wooden phone, but you can probably send an SMS now if you had a real phone that looked like that. Okay, now you just got to put it back together, and we'll show you how to do that quickly. The magnet on the top, the really strong magnet on the top, will help you release the SIM card again. You don't have to dig it out with your fingernail. You need to put this back into place. It goes on top like so. You need to put this back in the right way around and push down, and it locks into place. I'll put the torch on there so you can see where it is again now. It's actually just, it's well camouflaged, it's just on the left hand side there inside. Okay, now we need to put the SIM card back in here. We need to put the drawer in. To put the drawer in the right way up this time so it lines up properly, we will need to raise the elliptical weight. It's there, and we put this back in. That's the locking pin for it. And it closes. We need to reset the elliptical weight the other way again. That's probably enough. Now, what we got to do is we get the ball bearing out of the lock. So we bring this back around to 1 where the groove is, tip it upside down, let it fall out again. It's there now. That's it, that's the ball bearing. Put that back on 0, drop this back in, and we put our handset back on, and that's the SMS from start to finish. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed.